My name is Peggy, and I was 32 when my life changed forever at a luxury gala in Dubai. I was standing there in my best-dressed champagne glass in hand when my phone buzzed. One glance at the screen and my heart stopped. My CEO had just fired me via text, replacing me with his nephew while I was 7,000 miles away. I should have been devastated. Instead, I smiled as I glanced at the powerful businessman sitting beside me. Little did my boss know that single text message would be his undoing. If you are watching this right now, let me know where you are from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to see how I turned what should have been my lowest moment into the greatest opportunity of my career. I worked as the business development director at TechGrowth Incorporated, a mid-sized tech company based in Boston. With my MBA from Northwestern and 8 years of experience in the industry, I had carved out a reputation as someone who could close impossible deals and build lasting client relationships. My life revolved around my career. At 32, I was recently divorced with no children, and most of my family lived back in Chicago. The breakup had been amicable enough, but we both knew my dedication to work had created an unbridgeable gap between us. "You married your job long before you married me," he said during our last conversation, and I couldn't really argue with that assessment. I stood 5 feet 6 inches tall with shoulder-length brown hair that I usually kept in a professional bob. People often described me as put-together, focused, and intimidatingly competent. I dressed in tailored pantsuits and sensible heels, projecting the image of success and confidence I had worked so hard to cultivate. Being a woman in the male-dominated tech world meant I constantly had to prove myself. For every mistake I made, I had to have 10 successes to balance it out. When male colleagues spoke over me in meetings, I learned to speak louder rather than back down. When clients addressed questions to my male subordinates instead of me, I politely but firmly redirected their attention. My colleagues respected me, even if some resented my drive and ambition. I had built a small but loyal team who appreciated my straightforward approach and willingness to go to bat for them with upper management. Marcus from IT was one of my strongest allies, having worked with me on several innovative projects that earned us both recognition. Rebecca from marketing was another close colleague who understood the unique challenges women faced in our industry. My apartment was minimalist and tidy, more of a place to sleep than a home. Most weekends found me at the office preparing presentations or researching industry trends. I had missed my nephew's graduation, my sister's birthday, and countless family gatherings because of work emergencies or important deadlines. Success in my career came at a high personal cost, but I told myself it was worth it. Each promotion, each successful project, was validation that I had made the right choice. My parents, both teachers who had hoped I would follow in their footsteps, couldn't quite understand my devotion to corporate life, but supported me nonetheless. Before the Dubai trip, I had never traveled to the Middle East. My international experience was limited to a few business trips to Europe and a vacation to Mexico years ago. The opportunity to represent TechGrowth in Dubai filled me with both excitement and anxiety. I had spent weeks researching Arabic business customs, appropriate attire for women, and cultural sensitivities I needed to be aware of. When my plane touched down in Dubai, I was immediately struck by the juxtaposition of ancient traditions and futuristic architecture. The airport itself was a marvel of modern design with soaring ceilings and cutting-edge technology. My taxi driver pointed out landmarks as we drove to my hotel, and I marveled at the Burj Khalifa piercing the sky like something from a science fiction novel. My hotel room at the Grand Hyatt offered a spectacular view of the city skyline. I stood by the window for several minutes, taking in the glittering towers and busy streets below. This was a world away from my life in Boston, and I felt a rare moment of perspective. All those missed birthdays and sacrificed relationships had led me here, representing my company on the global stage. As I unpacked my suitcase and hung up my carefully selected outfits, I rehearsed my pitch in my head. The global tech partnership could transform TechGrowth's future, potentially doubling our market reach in the next 2 years. It was the kind of deal that made careers, and I was determined to make it happen. That first night, I ordered room service and reviewed my presentation materials one last time. I sent a brief update email to Roger, knowing he would be waiting for news. His response was characteristically terse. "Make it happen. Company counting on you." No pressure at all. As I finally lay down to sleep, fighting jet lag and nervous energy, I allowed myself a moment of pride. 8 years ago, I was just another MBA graduate with big dreams. Now I was in Dubai about to negotiate a deal worth millions. Whatever else I had sacrificed, this moment felt like vindication. Roger Hampton was not what most people envision when they think of a tech company CEO. At 58, he was old school in every sense of the word. He preferred phone calls to emails, paper reports to digital presentations, and face-to-face meetings to video conferences. His corner office was decorated with hunting trophies and family photos, showcasing generations of Hamptons, all looking equally stern and privileged. Coming from old money, Roger had a confidence that bordered on arrogance. He had taken over TechGrowth from his father 20 years ago and guided it through the dot-com bubble and subsequent digital revolution with a combination of shrewd business sense and well-timed acquisitions. To his credit, the company had grown significantly under his leadership, even if his management style belonged to a different era. I had worked directly with Roger for 4 years, ever since my promotion to Business Development Director. Our relationship was professional but complex. He respected my results, but seemed perpetually surprised by them, as if he couldn't quite believe a woman was responsible for such success. "You drive a hard bargain for such a pleasant-looking young lady," he once told me after I closed a particularly difficult deal. I smiled through gritted teeth and thanked him for the compliment. Despite these moments of casual sexism, Roger had entrusted me with increasingly important accounts and responsibilities. Last year, I had brought in 3 major clients that increased our revenue by 30%. Roger had acknowledged this achievement with a modest bonus and a brief, "Good work, Peggy," during the quarterly meeting. The trouble began 6 months ago when Jordan Hampton joined the company. Fresh out of business school with a degree that his grades barely justified, Jordan was Roger's nephew and apparent heir to the TechGrowth throne. At 27, he had the polished good looks and superficial charm that came from a lifetime of privilege. He also had absolutely no experience in the tech industry. "Jordan will be shadowing various departments to learn the business from the ground up," Roger announced in an email that fooled no one. Within weeks, Jordan had a corner office larger than most senior managers and was attending executive meetings despite having no official executive title. The first time I noticed something was wrong was when I was excluded from a strategy meeting with a client I had personally brought to the company. When I questioned Roger about it, he waved away my concerns. "Just thought Jordan could use the exposure to that account. No need to worry your pretty head about it." My pretty head had secured that 7-figure contract in the first place, but I swallowed my irritation and maintained a professional demeanor. Over the following months, a pattern emerged. Jordan was increasingly included in my meetings, given credit for my ideas, and positioned as the point person for clients I had cultivated for years. Rebecca noticed it too. "They are grooming him to take your position," she warned me over lunch one day. Classic nepotism play. Roger is getting close to retirement age, and he wants to keep the company in the family. "That is ridiculous," I replied, though I feared she was right. Jordan knows nothing about our products or our industry. He could not even explain our basic service offerings to the Miller account last week. Rebecca shrugged. "Since when has competence mattered more than connections? Just watch your back." The company culture at TechGrowth had always been competitive, but it was increasingly becoming toxic. The so-called Old Boys Club dominated upper management with only 2 women among the 15 executives. Decision-making happened on golf courses and at steakhouse dinners, to which female employees were rarely invited. Despite this environment, I had always believed that results would ultimately matter more than gender or connections. My track record spoke for itself, and clients specifically requested to work with me. I had built a reputation both within the company and the industry that I thought would protect me from office politics. Marcus, our IT department head, became another confidant during this difficult period. As one of the few male executives who treated female colleagues as equals, he was a valuable ally. "The problem is not just Jordan," he told me during one of our coffee breaks. "Roger is under pressure from the board. The company is not performing as well as the public numbers suggest." This was news to me. "What do you mean? We just reported record growth last quarter." Marcus lowered his voice. "Creative accounting. The global tech deal is more important than you know. Without a major injection of international business, we could be in trouble by next year." This information added a new layer of pressure to my Dubai trip. If TechGrowth was in financial trouble landing, this partnership was not just about my career but potentially about saving jobs, including my own. The irony that I was working to save a company that was actively undermining me was not lost on me. As my departure date approached, Roger became increasingly controlling about the trip details. He questioned my budget, limited my time in Dubai to the bare minimum, and insisted on daily update calls at times that would be the middle of the night in the Middle East. I should really be the one going, Jordan commented loudly as I prepared my presentation materials. I have a buddy from Princeton whose father owns half of Dubai. We could golf with him. I bit my tongue rather than pointing out that nobody owned half of Dubai and that business in the Middle East relied on relationships and respect, not collegiate connections. Instead, I focused on preparing thoroughly for what might be the most important business trip of my career, even as I sensed my position within the company growing more precarious by the day. The global tech partnership had been my idea from the beginning. 6 months earlier, I had identified the Middle Eastern market as an untapped opportunity for our enterprise software solutions. After extensive research, Global Tech emerged as the ideal partner, a respected technology innovator with strong connections throughout the region. Getting Roger to approve the Dubai trip had been an uphill battle. "Cannot we just do this over video conference?" he asked during our initial discussion. "Dubai is a long way to go for a meeting that might not pan out. This kind of partnership requires face-to-face negotiation," I explained patiently. In Middle Eastern business culture, personal relationships are foundational to any significant deal. Besides, Global Tech has specifically requested an in-person presentation. After weeks of persistence and a detailed cost-benefit analysis showing the potential return on investment, Roger reluctantly approved the trip, though not without adding several caveats. 3 days maximum, he insisted. Economy flight, moderate hotel. And I want daily updates no matter the time difference. And make it clear that any final decisions will need my approval. I agreed to his terms while silently planning how to make the most of my limited time in Dubai. The weeks leading up to the trip were a blur of preparation. I studied Global Tech's business model, leadership structure, and recent innovations. I learned about Emirati business etiquette and even practiced a few Arabic greetings and expressions. The 14-hour flight from Boston to Dubai was exhausting, even with my careful preparation. I reviewed my presentation materials until my eyes burned, then tried unsuccessfully to sleep in the cramped economy seat. When we finally landed, I was running on adrenaline and coffee. Stepping outside the airport was like walking into a furnace. Even in early evening, the temperature hovered around 95 degrees, the humidity making my carefully styled hair instantly wilt. My taxi driver, a friendly Filipino expatriate named Carlos, chatted enthusiastically about the city as we navigated the impressive highway system. "First time in Dubai, ma'am? You will love it. City of the future, they call it. Everything is possible here." My hotel, while not the extravagant Burj Al Arab that dominated tourist photos, was still impressively luxurious. The Grand Hyatt Dubai featured soaring atriums, multiple restaurants, and a level of service that made American five-star hotels seem mediocre by comparison. I barely had time to shower and change before my first meeting with Global Tech representatives. The Global Tech headquarters occupied 20 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in the Dubai Internet City Business Park. The reception area featured marble floors, a living wall of tropical plants, and a holographic display showcasing the company's latest innovations. I was escorted to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. Hassan Al-Farsi, Global Tech's chief operating officer, greeted me with a warm handshake. In his mid-40s, Hassan had an impressive presence, dressed in an impeccable Western suit rather than traditional Emirati attire. His perfect English carried just a hint of a British accent, a souvenir from his education at Oxford. "Miss Williams, welcome to Dubai. I trust your journey was comfortable." His genuine interest in my travel experience set the tone for a meeting that felt more like a conversation between colleagues than a formal business negotiation. For the next 2 hours, we discussed the potential partnership in detail. Hassan asked insightful questions about TechGrowth's technology and seemed particularly interested in our artificial intelligence applications. I was pleased to find that he was both knowledgeable and straightforward, without the game playing that often characterized American business dealings. "Your proposal is intriguing," Hassan said as our meeting concluded. "I believe there is significant potential for collaboration between our companies." I would like to introduce you to some of our key investors at an event this evening. The event, he explained, was a charity gala supporting educational initiatives throughout the Middle East. It would be attended by Global Tech's leadership team, as well as various business leaders and investors from across the region. This is a perfect opportunity for you to make connections that could benefit our potential partnership, Hassan explained. In our culture, business relationships are built on personal trust. Meeting our extended network will help establish that foundation. Back at my hotel, I called Roger to update him on the initial meeting, carefully navigating the 8-hour time difference. Despite the promising start, his response was characteristically underwhelming. Just do not commit to anything without running it by me first, he instructed. And remember, we are not desperate. Be prepared to walk away if the terms are not favorable. After hanging up, I lay on the hotel bed for a moment, fighting jet lag and frustration. Roger had no idea how competitive the global market for tech partnerships had become. His outdated perspective could cost us this vital opportunity. With only a few hours before the gala, I faced a wardrobe crisis. I had packed for business meetings, not formal events. Fortunately, the hotel concierge directed me to a nearby luxury department store, where I found an elegant black evening gown that was conservative enough for local standards while still being stylish. As I prepared for the evening, I could not help but reflect on the stark contrast between this moment and my usual routine back home. In Boston, my evenings typically involved takeout at my desk while reviewing contracts or preparing presentations. Here I was in Dubai, about to attend a gala with some of the most influential business leaders in the Middle East. Despite the exhaustion and pressure, I felt a surge of excitement. This was the international business career I had always envisioned for myself. At 7:30, a chauffeur arrived to transport me to the gala venue, a spectacular ballroom at the iconic Atlantis Hotel on the Palm Jumeirah. As we drove along the palm-shaped artificial island, the city lights reflected in the Persian Gulf waters, creating a scene of almost otherworldly beauty. For the first time since arriving, I allowed myself to appreciate the remarkable city around me, a testament to ambition and vision transformed into reality. Whatever happens tonight, I told myself as we approached the hotel, this moment alone makes all the hard work worthwhile. The Atlantis ballroom had been transformed into a scene from a modern Arabian Nights tale. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with exotic flower arrangements. The dress code was a fascinating blend of Western formal wear and traditional Middle Eastern attire, creating a visual representation of the cultural fusion that characterized Dubai itself. I adjusted my black gown, grateful that I had found something appropriate at the last minute. The simple but elegant dress featured a modest neckline and fell just below the knee, striking the right balance between professional and formal. I had paired it with the pearl earrings my grandmother had given me for my college graduation, a small connection to home in this foreign setting. As I entered the ballroom, a server offered me a glass of non-alcoholic champagne from a silver tray. The catering featured an extravagant display of international cuisine, from traditional Arabic mezze to French delicacies and Japanese sushi, all presented with artistic flair. A string quartet played softly in the background, their classical melodies occasionally incorporating Middle Eastern motifs. Hassan spotted me from across the room and came over immediately, accompanied by a striking woman in a sapphire blue gown. Peggy, welcome. May I introduce my wife, Layla Al-Farsi. Layla. This is Peggy Williams from TechGrowth in the United States. Layla greeted me warmly. Hassan has told me about your innovative approach to enterprise solutions. I hope you are enjoying your first visit to our city. I was pleasantly surprised by her technical knowledge and learned that she held a computer science degree from MIT. Our conversation flowed easily as she shared insights about Dubai's rapid emergence as a technology hub. Over the next hour, Hassan introduced me to various business leaders and potential investors. I carefully navigated these interactions, mindful of cultural nuances, while highlighting TechGrowth's strengths and unique offerings. The responses were encouraging, with several executives expressing genuine interest in our products. You are making quite an impression, Hassan commented as he guided me through the room. In particular, there is someone I would like you to meet who might be especially interested in what TechGrowth has to offer. He led me toward a small group engaged in conversation near one of the towering windows overlooking the Gulf. At the center of this group stood a distinguished man in his early 50s, dressed in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. Even without an introduction, his commanding presence marked him as someone of significance. Khalid, may I interrupt? There is someone you should meet, Hassan said, addressing the man with obvious respect. This is Peggy Williams, Business Development Director from TechGrowth Incorporated. Peggy, allow me to introduce Khalid bin Mohammed, Chairman of Alpha Ventures. Even I, with my limited knowledge of Middle Eastern business figures, recognize the name. Alpha Ventures was one of the largest investment firms in the region, with holdings across technology, real estate, and energy sectors. Meeting Khalid bin Mohammed was like meeting a combination of Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. Miss Williams, it is a pleasure, Khalid said, his English perfect and his handshake firm. Hassan tells me you have some interesting ideas about software integration for emerging markets. What followed was one of the most engaging business conversations of my career. Khalid was not only knowledgeable about the technology sector, but had a visionary perspective on where the industry was heading. He asked pointed questions about TechGrowth's artificial intelligence capabilities and seemed particularly interested in our expansion strategy. The future of technology lies in meaningful global partnerships, he observed, especially between Western innovation and Middle Eastern investment. The potential synergies are enormous. I was in the middle of explaining our approach to data security when my phone vibrated in my clutch. Normally, I would never check messages during such an important conversation, but given the time difference and Roger's insistence on constant communication, I worried it might be urgent. Please excuse me for just a moment, I said apologetically, slipping my phone out discreetly. The message was indeed from Roger, but it was not the routine check-in I had expected. My heart nearly stopped as I read. Peggy Company is restructuring. Your position has been reassigned to Jordan. Clear out your office by Monday. Do not contact clients anymore. Severance details to follow. The blood drained from my face as the implications hit me. I had been fired by text message while 7,000 miles from home in the middle of negotiating a potentially company-saving deal. Not only fired, but replaced by Roger's inexperienced nephew. The callousness and unprofessionalism were staggering. For a moment, I could not breathe. The opulent ballroom seemed to spin around me as I gripped my champagne glass tightly, trying to maintain my composure. Years of dedication, countless sacrificed personal relationships, all the nights and weekends working instead of living, reduced to a dismissive text message. Miss Williams, are you all right? Khalid's concerned voice broke through my shock. You look quite pale suddenly. I forced a smile, but it must have appeared as strained as it felt. I apologize. I just received some unexpected news from my company. Nothing serious, I hope, he inquired, his expression showing genuine concern rather than mere politeness. In that moment, I had to make a split-second decision. Should I maintain the facade that everything was fine and continue the conversation as if my career hadn't just imploded, or should I be honest with this man who could potentially change the trajectory of my professional life? The champagne glass trembled slightly in my hand as I considered my options, standing at a crossroads that would determine much more than just the outcome of this evening. Khalid's perceptive eyes hadn't missed a thing. He gently guided me to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the bustling crowd and prying ears. 2 plush chairs faced the spectacular view of Dubai's skyline, the city lights twinkling like earthbound stars against the night sky. Please sit, he said, his tone gentle but authoritative. Whatever news you have received seems to require a moment of reflection. I sank into the chair, still clutching my phone, the text message burning on the screen like an accusation. The professional mask I had worn for years threatened to crack completely. Taking a deep breath, I tried to gather my composure. I apologize for the interruption. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. It appears that my position at TechGrowth has been terminated. Effective immediately. Khalid's expression remained calm, but his eyes sharpened with interest. In the middle of your business trip, while you are representing them internationally, apparently company restructuring couldn't wait until I returned home. I replied, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. I've been replaced by the CEO's nephew. A silence hung between us as Khalid seemed to consider this information. I expected polite sympathy, followed by a swift end to our conversation. After all, I no longer represented a company he might want to do business with. To my surprise, he leaned forward instead. May I see the message, he asked. Only if you are comfortable sharing, of course. The request was unusual, but something in his manner inspired trust. I handed him my phone, watching as he read the brief, callous text that had just derailed my career. "Interesting timing," he said, finally returning the phone. His tone had shifted from sympathetic to analytical, and quite unprofessional, if I may say so. "That's one word for it," I agreed, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Khalid studied me for a moment as if making a decision. Then he did something completely unexpected. He laughed, a warm, genuine sound that drew curious glances from nearby guests. "Miss Williams, I believe what Americans call a plot twist has just occurred." His eyes sparkled with something that looked remarkably like opportunity. "Your CEO has made what we in investment circles would call a strategic error." Confused by his reaction, I waited for him to continue. "Perhaps it is time for full disclosure," Khalid said, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. "I am not merely an investor looking for interesting opportunities. Alpha Ventures has been actively exploring acquisition targets in the American technology sector for the past 6 months. TechGrowth has been on our shortlist." My shock must have been evident because he continued quickly. "We have been researching your company extensively, the financials, the product portfolio, the market position, but what we couldn't properly assess from reports and figures was the quality of the people and the internal culture." "Until now," I said, beginning to understand. "Until now," he confirmed with a nod. "Hassan invited you to this gala at my request. I wanted to meet someone from TechGrowth's leadership team in a less formal setting, to get a sense of the human element behind the balance sheets. I felt a complex mix of emotions: anger at Roger, vindication that my work had attracted such significant attention, and a growing sense that this disaster might actually be an opportunity." "So what did Roger's text just tell you about TechGrowth?" I asked. "That its current leadership makes impulsive decisions without strategic consideration, that loyalty and competence are less valued than family connections, and that they have just alienated a key executive who clearly understands their business intimately." Khalid's assessment was clinical and precise. He paused, then asked, "If you were in my position, would you consider this a company worth acquiring as is?" The question caught me off guard. "Are you asking for my professional opinion about my former employer?" "I am asking for your honest assessment as someone who until 10 minutes ago was deeply invested in TechGrowth's success." I took a moment to consider my response. There was an ethical dimension to this conversation that couldn't be ignored. Yet Roger had severed any obligation I had to protect the company's interests. "TechGrowth has valuable intellectual property and some exceptional talent," I began carefully. "The core technology, particularly our AI engine, is genuinely innovative. But," I hesitated. "But the management is problematic," Khalid finished for me. "The company is more financially vulnerable than public disclosures suggest," I admitted. "Roger has been using increasingly creative accounting to maintain the appearance of growth. The global tech partnership wasn't just a strategic expansion, it was a financial necessity." Khalid nodded, unsurprised. "Our analysis suggested as much, but it's valuable to have confirmation." He seemed to come to a decision, sitting up straighter in his chair. "Peggy, I would like to propose something rather unorthodox. A potential arrangement that could benefit us both." "I'm listening," I said, curiosity overriding my lingering shock. "Alpha Ventures still sees value in acquiring TechGrowth, but with significant restructuring. We would need someone intimately familiar with the company's operations, someone with vision and competence to guide that process." His gaze was direct and evaluating. "Someone like you." My breath caught as I grasped what he was suggesting. "You want me to help you acquire the company that just fired me?" "I want more than that," Khalid clarified. "I want you to become the CEO of TechGrowth after we acquire it." The proposal was so unexpected that I laughed despite myself. That would be quite the reversal of fortune. "Business, like life, often moves in unexpected directions," Khalid said with a slight smile. "The question is whether you are willing to navigate this particular turn." I considered the moral implications. Was this revenge? Perhaps partly. But it was also an opportunity to save a company I had helped build, to protect the jobs of colleagues I respected, and to implement the vision that Roger had consistently undermined. If I agreed, I said slowly, I would have conditions. The first being protection for certain key employees who deserve better than what current management has provided. Completely reasonable, Khalid agreed. What else? A commitment to ethical business practices going forward. No more creative accounting, no more nepotism. That aligns perfectly with our investment philosophy. My mind was racing now, seeing not just possibility but a path forward. And I would want to pursue the global tech partnership as originally envisioned. It's still valuable regardless of the ownership structure. Khalid smiled broadly. I believe Hassan would be quite pleased to hear that. In fact, that partnership could be the first step in a much broader integration of TechGrowth into the international market. He extended his hand. Do we have a preliminary agreement, Miss Williams, subject to proper legal documentation, of course? As I shook his hand, I felt something shift inside me. The devastating blow of Roger's text was transforming into something else entirely. A doorway rather than a dead end. One last question, I said. How quickly can this happen? Khalid removed a sleek phone from his jacket pocket. Let me make a few calls. I believe we can move quite expeditiously when the situation calls for it. As he contacted his legal team, I gazed out at the Dubai skyline, marveling at how drastically my circumstances had changed in less than an hour. When I had read Roger's text, I thought my career was over. Now I was potentially on the verge of a position I had never dared dream of. The evening that had begun with professional devastation was ending with unexpected promise. Sometimes I realized being in the right place with the right person at the right time could change everything, even if that place was 7,000 miles from home. I barely slept that night. After the gala, Khalid had arranged for his corporate legal team to meet with me first thing in the morning. My hotel room became an impromptu war room as I prepared for what would be the most important negotiation of my life. At 7:30 sharp, a knock on my door announced the arrival of Khalid's legal counsel, a sharp Emirati woman named Fatima, who had been educated at Harvard Law School. She was accompanied by 2 financial analysts and Alpha Ventures chief strategy officer. Mr. bin Mohammed has briefed us on the situation, Fatima began once we were all seated around the suite's dining table. We believe we can move forward with an acquisition offer within 48 hours, if you can provide us with some additional internal insights about TechGrowth. For the next 3 hours, I walked them through everything I knew about the company's true financial position, organizational structure, key intellectual property, and potential vulnerabilities. Years of sitting in executive meetings and reviewing confidential reports had given me a comprehensive understanding of TechGrowth's inner workings. The board meeting scheduled for Monday afternoon is crucial, I explained. That is when Roger plans to announce the restructuring officially, including my termination. If we can present an acquisition offer before or during that meeting, it would create maximum leverage. Fatima nodded, making notes on her tablet. We can have the preliminary offer ready by then. The question is how to deliver it for maximum effect. I should be there in person, I said firmly. Roger expects me to be clearing out my office. He will never anticipate that I would attend the board meeting. That could be quite dramatic, the strategy officer commented with a slight smile. Drama is not the goal, I clarified. Effectiveness Island Roger respects money and power above all else. Having Khalid present the offer virtually while I am physically in the room will send a clear message about the new power dynamic. As the meeting progressed, a comprehensive plan took shape. Alpha Ventures would offer to acquire TechGrowth at a 40% premium over its current market valuation, conditional upon a complete leadership restructuring with me as the new CEO. The offer would be significantly higher than anything Roger could hope to receive elsewhere, making it difficult for the board to reject regardless of personal feelings. After the legal team departed, I placed 2 crucial calls. The first was to Marcus in IT. Peggy, aren't you in Dubai? It must be the middle of the night there, he answered, sounding confused. It is morning here. Listen, Marcus, I need to know what is really happening at the office. Has Roger announced anything about restructuring? There was a pause before Marcus responded, his voice lowered. Not officially, but there are rumors. Jordan has been moving his things into a bigger office, and HR has been acting strange. People are worried about layoffs. What is going on, Peggy? I took a deep breath. Roger fired me by text last night. I have been replaced by Jordan. What? That is insane. The global tech deal was your initiative. You are the only one who can make it happen. Roger does not care about that. But I need your help. Can you meet me first thing Monday morning before anyone else arrives? And can you be discreet until then? Marcus did not hesitate. Absolutely. Just tell me what you need. My second call was to Rebecca in marketing. Her reaction mirrored Marcus's shock and outrage. This is beyond unprofessional, she fumed. It is corporate suicide. Jordan could not negotiate his way out of a paper bag. I need your help too, I told her, explaining what I needed her to do on Monday morning. With my allies in place, I changed my flight to return to Boston a day early. As I packed my bags, I felt a strange calm. The initial shock and hurt had been replaced by focused determination. Roger had made a critical error, and now he would face the consequences. The flight home gave me time to reflect. Had Roger even considered the implications of firing me while I was in the middle of international negotiations? Did he think I would simply slink away in humiliation? The arrogance was staggering, but not surprising. Throughout my career, I had watched powerful men make decisions based on ego rather than strategy. This time, that tendency would be their undoing. Monday morning arrived with crystal clarity. I dressed with particular care, choosing a power suit that projected confidence and authority. When I arrived at the TechGrowth offices at 7 a.m., Marcus was waiting as promised. I have accessed Roger's emails, he said without preamble once we were safely in my soon-to-be former office. You need to see this. The emails confirmed what I had suspected. Roger had been planning to replace me with Jordan for months regardless of my performance or the outcome of the Dubai trip. More damning were the communications with the board significantly downplaying the company's financial challenges while exaggerating Jordan's qualifications and contributions. He has been setting you up to take the fall if the global tech deal failed, Marcus said grimly, while positioning Jordan to take credit if it succeeded. Rebecca arrived 30 minutes later with additional intelligence. The board is nervous. 2 members have been asking questions about the financial reports that Roger doesn't want to answer. That is why he's rushing this restructuring through. At 9:30, Roger arrived at the office. His double take upon seeing me at my desk was almost comical. Peggy, what are you doing here? I thought I made it clear in my message that your position has been eliminated. His tone was dismissive, clearly expecting me to pack up quietly and leave. I came to collect my things as instructed, I replied calmly. I assume you will want a proper handover of the global tech negotiations. Roger waved his hand impatiently. Jordan will be handling all your accounts going forward. Just leave your files and security badge with HR. At that moment, Jordan appeared in the doorway smirking. His expensive suit couldn't disguise his fundamental lack of substance. Hey, Peggy. Tough break. Business is business, right? His condescending tone made it clear he believed his position was secure based solely on his family connection. I maintained my professional demeanor. Roger, I would like to attend the board meeting this afternoon. His eyebrows shot up in surprise. That would be highly inappropriate. You are no longer part of the executive team. I believe the board might be interested in my perspective on the global tech negotiations, especially given the company's current financial position. I emphasized the last words slightly, watching Roger's expression shift from dismissive to concerned. What exactly do you think you know about our financial position? He asked, his voice lowered. Everything, I replied simply, including the discrepancies between what you have told the board and the actual numbers. Roger's face paled visibly. Jordan looked between us, clearly confused by the sudden tension. That is privileged information, Roger hissed, if you are threatening to disclose confidential data. I am simply offering to provide the board with a complete picture before they make decisions about the company's future, I interrupted. It would be a shame if they approved a restructuring without understanding all the relevant factors. A calculation was clearly happening behind Roger's eyes as he weighed his options. Finally, he nodded curtly. Fine. You can have 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. To give your perspective on the Dubai trip only. Thank you, I said, knowing that 5 minutes would be more than enough. The hours until the board meeting crawled by. I used the time to coordinate with Khalid's team and prepare my brief but crucial presentation. At 2 p.m., I took my place in the boardroom, ignoring the curious glances from board members, who clearly hadn't expected to see me. Roger called the meeting to order with forced joviality. Before we get to our main agenda items, Peggy Williams would like to give us a quick update on her recent trip to Dubai. After that, we will discuss the organizational changes I mentioned in my earlier email. He gestured for me to speak clearly, expecting a brief and inconsequential report that he could quickly move past. I stood and walked to the front of the room, connecting my laptop to the presentation system. Thank you, Roger. I would indeed like to discuss my Dubai trip, but also a significant opportunity that has emerged as a result. Roger frowned but didn't interrupt as I began a concise overview of the global tech meetings. Board members nodded appreciatively at the positive response I had received from Hassan and his team. However, I continued. Something unexpected happened during my trip that I believe is highly relevant to today's discussions about TechGrowth's future. Roger shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Peggy, perhaps we should stick to the global tech specifics. This is directly related, I assured him before turning back to the board. While attending a business gala in Dubai, I was introduced to Khalid bin Mohammed, chairman of Alpha Ventures. Several board members straightened in their seats, clearly recognizing the name and its significance. Mr. bin Mohammed expressed particular interest in TechGrowth's AI capabilities and market position. In fact, he would like to address the board directly, if you would permit it. Without waiting for Roger's response, I initiated the video call that had been prearranged. Khalid's face appeared on the large screen, poised and professional, in his office in Dubai. Good afternoon, members of the TechGrowth board, he began. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you. As Ms. Williams mentioned, Alpha Ventures has been exploring investment opportunities in the American technology sector. After extensive research and my conversations with Ms. Williams, I would like to present a formal offer to acquire TechGrowth Incorporated. Roger's face had gone from pale to crimson. This is completely inappropriate. You had no authority to engage in acquisition discussions. One of the board members, Janet Chen, raised her hand to silence Roger. I believe we should hear Mr. bin Mohammed out. Khalid proceeded to outline the offer: a 40% premium over TechGrowth's current valuation, immediate capital injection to stabilize the company's finances, and expansion into Middle Eastern markets through the global tech partnership. There is, however, one non-negotiable condition, Khalid continued. Alpha Ventures requires a change in executive leadership as part of this acquisition. Specifically, we would install Peggy Williams as the new Chief Executive Officer, based on her demonstrated understanding of the business and strategic vision. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Roger jumped to his feet, sputtering with indignation. This is preposterous. A hostile takeover attempt orchestrated by a disgruntled employee. Janet Chen spoke again, her voice cutting through the chaos. The offer represents a significant premium over our current valuation, Roger. As board members with fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders, we are obligated to consider it seriously. Another board member, Richard Powell, nodded in agreement. Particularly given the financial challenges we have been facing, which you seem to have somewhat understated in recent reports. The tide was turning rapidly. Board members began asking Khalid detailed questions about the offer, the integration plan, and the timeline for the acquisition. Roger's attempts to regain control of the meeting were increasingly ignored. As I watched the scene unfold, I caught Jordan's eye across the room. The smug certainty had vanished from his expression, replaced by the dawning realization that his unearned promotion was evaporating before his eyes. Within an hour, the board had voted to form a special committee to evaluate Alpha Ventures' offer, effectively sidelining Roger from the decision-making process. The meeting adjourned with a clear directive to pursue the acquisition discussions as a top priority. As board members filed out, many stopped to speak with me suddenly, viewing me not as a departing employee but as their potential future CEO. Roger remained seated, staring at the table in front of him, the reality of his miscalculation finally sinking in. I approached him one last time before leaving. For what it is worth, Roger, I would have preferred that things didn't end this way. He looked up, his expression a mixture of anger and resignation. You planned this all along, didn't you? I shook my head. You created this situation when you chose nepotism over merit. I simply found a way to turn your poor decision into a better outcome for the company and its employees. As I walked out of the boardroom, my phone buzzed with a message from Khalid. Congratulations on a flawless execution. Looking forward to our partnership. The text that had been meant to end my career had instead catapulted it to heights I had never imagined possible. Sometimes I reflected the worst moments in our lives are simply setting the stage for something better if we have the courage to seize the opportunity when it appears. 6 months later, I sat in the CEO's office at TechGrowth, reviewing quarterly reports with a satisfaction that still felt somewhat surreal. The leather chair that had once been Roger's now adjusted to my preferences, and the hunting trophies had been replaced with abstract art and a living wall of plants that brightened the space. The Alpha Ventures acquisition had been finalized in record time, with the board unanimously approving the offer once they fully understood the company's financial situation and the premium being offered for their shares. Roger had negotiated a face-saving exit package and disappeared to his vacation home in Maine, rarely mentioned in company conversations anymore. The transition had been challenging but exhilarating. With Khalid's backing, I had implemented the changes I had long envisioned, but never had the authority to execute. The first priority had been restructuring the executive team to reflect actual merit rather than connections or tenure. Rebecca now served as Chief Operating Officer, bringing her organizational genius and people skills to transform our internal processes. Marcus had been promoted to Chief Technology Officer, finally giving him the platform to implement the innovative solutions he had advocated for years. Together, we formed a leadership team that balanced diverse perspectives with shared values of excellence and integrity. Jordan surprisingly remained with the company, though in a much different capacity. After a frank conversation where I offered him the choice between leaving or starting from an entry-level position to learn the business properly, he had chosen the latter. His initial resentment had gradually given way to genuine engagement as he discovered the satisfaction of earning recognition rather than having it handed to him. "You could have fired me," he admitted during a recent check-in. "Most people would have given the circumstances. Firing someone because you can is exactly the kind of leadership that nearly destroyed this company," I had replied. "I am more interested in building something sustainable." The global tech partnership had exceeded all expectations. Hassan and I had developed a collaborative relationship that bridged our different business cultures, resulting in a joint venture that had expanded TechGrowth's market presence throughout the Middle East and parts of Asia. Our revenue had increased by 60%, and employee satisfaction scores were at an all-time high. The personal transformation had been equally significant. The woman who had once sacrificed everything for her career now understood the importance of balance. I had reconnected with family, started dating again, and even taken actual vacations where I completely disconnected from work. The company didn't collapse in my absence, a lesson in delegation that had been long overdue. My weekly calls with Khalid had evolved from formal business updates to valued mentorship sessions. His guidance had helped me navigate the complexities of international business and the unique challenges of being a female CEO in a still predominantly male industry. The true measure of leadership, he told me during our most recent conversation, is not how high you climb, but how many you bring along with you. Taking this philosophy to heart, I had established a Women in Technology mentorship program, pairing promising female employees with executives across the industry. The initiative had already helped several women advance into leadership roles that might otherwise have seemed unattainable. The most unexpected encounter came 3 months after the acquisition, when I ran into Roger at an upscale Boston restaurant. He looked older, the confidence that had once bordered on arrogance replaced by a subdued demeanor. He was dining alone, picking at his food without much interest. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw the momentary panic in his expression. After a moment's hesitation, I approached his table. "Hello, Roger. How are you?" He straightened his shoulders, attempting to recover some of his former dignity. "Peggy. Or should I say Chief Executive Officer Williams now?" "Just Peggy is fine," I said, maintaining a professional warmth despite our history. "Are you enjoying your retirement?" "Adjustment period," he muttered, not quite meeting my eyes. "Turns out golf gets boring after the first month." On impulse, I made an offer that surprised us both. "Would you like some company? I am dining alone as well." His shock was evident, but after a moment he nodded, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. Our conversation was initially awkward, but gradually eased into something resembling normal human interaction. By the end of the meal, we had reached a kind of peace, not friendship, but at least a mutual acknowledgement of the complex journey that had brought us to this point. "You know, I never thought you had it in you," Roger admitted as we waited for the check. "That kind of strategic thinking." That. Ruthlessness. It wasn't ruthlessness, I corrected him. It was self-preservation combined with a genuine belief that I could do better for the company. And I wasn't trying to destroy you, Roger. I was trying to save something I had helped build. He nodded slowly, seeming to truly see me for the first time. Well, the stock price suggests you were right. Congratulations on that at least. As I walked back to my apartment that evening, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed in just 6 months. The text message that had been meant to end my career had instead been the catalyst for its greatest advancement. The humiliation that should have broken my spirit had instead revealed a strength and resilience I hadn't known I possessed. There is a profound truth that emerges from experiences like mine. Our lowest moments often contain the seeds of our greatest opportunities. When Roger fired me by text while I sat next to one of the most powerful investors in the Middle East, he unknowingly opened a door that would have remained closed otherwise. The real lesson wasn't about revenge, or even just as satisfying as those might feel in the moment. It was about recognizing opportunity in adversity, about maintaining dignity and strategic thinking, even when facing profound unfairness. It was about understanding that our value doesn't diminish because someone fails to see it. Life rarely follows a straight path to success. It zigzags through disappointments and unexpected challenges, through moments that test our character and force us to decide who we really are. The text message that fired me didn't define me, but my response to it did. So, what about you? Have you ever had a moment of rejection or failure that ultimately led to something better? Or are you perhaps in the middle of such a moment right now, unable to see the opportunity hidden within the disappointment? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more tales of resilience and unexpected victory. Share it with someone who might need encouragement during a professional setback, because sometimes knowing that others have transformed their lowest moments into triumph is exactly the inspiration we need. Remember, it is not the fall that defines us, but how we choose to rise afterward. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and until next time, may you find the hidden opportunities in your own challenges.